What's happening, everybody? I'm Tommy, and you are on the boat. Good to see you. Glad you're here. Let's see who we got. Jamie Palmer, what's happening? Wendy R, there you are. Kristen Melinda, Brock Bandy, Mike Bragg. Jane Aldridge is here. Hey, Jane, how are you? Hope you're doing well. David, glad you're here. Sure, I'm missing some folks. Hard to believe I'm doing a show on old Danny Masterson. I kind of thought we wouldn't be talking about him for a while. However, every once in a while something comes up and you got to do the, yeah, I called that. You know, that whole I told you so thing is just so much fun for me. So we're going to get into that. Just Joan, good to see you. For those who don't remember, Danny Masterson was convicted back in 2023 to a 30-year to life sentence, right? 30 to life, kind of a long rip. Completely deserved. This is a bad man, right? This is a guy that's a bit of a dirtbag. So he is serving out his time. This is now the third prison that he is in. Looks like DS Kitty. Diane, how are you? Glad you're here. West Lightburn. Wendy R. I'm sorry to hear that. We all drag some days, though. It does happen to us. He is now incarcerated at the California Men's Colony. It's a medium and low security prison. He is in dorm living. That place was cut in half. There's an east and a west side. They shut half of it down, maybe because it's been open since the 1920s. It's a very old facility. And from Massachusetts, good to see you. It may also have something to do with the fact that there's been a lot of lawsuits there over the years. One of them a $3 million settlement. Renee B., I'm glad you're here. For women that work there that were sexually harassed viciously and they let it go on, not by inmates, by the way, but by staff. They let it go on and had to do one of the largest settlements in the history of California prisons. So it is a place with a storied history of sorts. He is there now, and believe it or not, folks, he's in general population. This guy is not in a special needs yard or a protective custody yard. Wes Watson, did you hear that? Danny Masterson did not check in. You piece of vermin, lowlife. Whippy Island Girl, good to see you. So he's walking a yard. They try to sprinkle sex offenders. You have an R next to your register number in California if you're a sex offender. So the R inmates get sprinkled into general population. This is pretty rare from the time I've done. They don't normally do that. They do try to separate them. Gladys Wilson, I'm glad you're here. Well, this is not your normal general population, right? So he's on a level 2 yard. He's not on a 3 or 4 yard. However, this is a tough situation for Danny Masterson. And when he first landed in prison, the first place he went was Kearns prison in California. Then they moved him to Corcoran, and everybody started talking about how he wasn't going to be doing a hard time. Bohemian Luciferian Witch, I'm glad you're here, and I hope you feel better. Can we get some ones up there for my friend? Yes, Wendy R says CMC is a kickback place. Yeah, yes and no. We tend to judge those things by the fact that people will say, you know what, there weren't a lot of people injured there or whatever. I've been on yards that people said were soft, and they were. I mean, compared to a USP, to a United States penitentiary or to a level 4 yard or anything like that. Hey, Jess Joan, they're definitely safer places. Doesn't mean you're doing soft time. And a lot of people came out and started making a big deal about he's playing, pickleball every day. He's in there living the dream. He's not living the dream. And there is a lot of news that has been coming out. The 7th of November, there was a story that broke. His, hey, Gladys Wilson, wow, for him in the general population, got to be a risky for him. Yeah, and worse than that, because even if they're not getting him, right? Who's this? Good to see you. Even if they're not getting him, that doesn't mean he's not living in hell. So one of the last yards I was on in the Bureau of Prisons, that's the federal system, was called Sheridan. They very often call it Sheradice because it is not a yard that you have to worry a whole lot about somebody stabbing you on. I did a very short rip there because it was my shipping yard, right? So in the feds, they ship you within 500 miles of where you got busted for the last 6 months of your sentence so that you can work on getting stuff set up for your transition back to the street. Sheradice is soft. It's a soft yard. They have a pond for turtles that you can go and check out. It's a soft yard, but doesn't mean they didn't have killers there. In fact, when I was there, Big Meech, kind of a famous figure in the gangster world, was from Atlanta. Big Meech was on that yard. There's a lot of dangerous folks there. They're just laying it down. They're not trying to do dangerous things. There were also sex offenders on that yard, and they were treated viciously. I don't mean they were getting beat up every day, because it wasn't that kind of yard, but they were not allowed to sit down in the chow hall. Imagine eating 3 meals a day, 365 days a year, standing up. If they are in there talking on a telephone and someone wants to use the phone, they will just go in there and hang up. Oh, he is unhappy. Prison is not what posh lifestyle he was used to. Yeah, well, it got a little worse than that, because here's what happened. Bijou, his ex-wife, filed some paperwork to change the daughter's last name to Phillips instead of having it Masterson, which would probably be a real benefit for the kid, because just about everybody in the world now is pretty unhappy with Danny Masterson. So when that report got to him, the people in there that are in the know are saying that Danny's miserable. And the reasons that he listed, one of them was, that the change of the daughter's last name apparently came as a shock to him, which makes you wonder how intelligent the guy is, because how the hell would somebody not want to hook up their kid by getting rid of the last name Masterson after the crap he's pulled? On top of that, he said that he's being treated very badly by the inmates, right? The inmates don't treat him well. There's a shocker. Pepperhead, good to see you. I said this, and people said, "Oh no, he's gonna be kind to him, and he's famous and this and that." Man, they're not kind to sex offenders. I don't know how many times I got to say this stuff, because people just don't seem to believe it. But Danny's doing hard time. The people in there are nasty to him. Doesn't mean they're kicking his ass, but it means that every time they see him, they're calling him a weirdo. They're calling him a rapist. They're doing all of the stuff that the fellas tend to do to people with these kinds of charges. They don't treat them well behind bars, and he's really bummed out about it. His wife is also now dating a guy that used to own, Bijou Phillips is dating a businessman named Jamie Mazur. This guy, it's been a low-key relationship, right? They're trying to sort of keep it under wraps. But it began in early 2024, right around the time that homeboy was getting locked up. Go figure. He had founded a denim brand and was previously engaged to model Alessandra Ambrosia for about 10 years. Now the two of them are together. All of these things are starting to weigh down Danny pretty hard. One of the other things he seems to complain about. Hello, Megan. Well, we'll get it all. We'll get you up to speed, so to speak. The other thing that's weighing down on this guy hard is that he had an awful lot of friends when he was on the street, and money and fame will do that, right? You'll get hangers on all over the place that want to tell you you're awesome, right? You're the coolest dude in the world. So he had that little brat pack thing he was running with. The people that hung out with him have abandoned him. Go figure, man, right? Tara, good to see you. Of course they're going to abandon him, right? Look what happened when Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis came out in support. It did damage, right, to the reputation of both of them. So now nobody wants to take the guy's calls. And the word is that they're kind of freaked out. They're kind of freaked out that he may take his own life, right? Or as they would say, drop the body. Oh no, hate to see that happen. Does he think the world should feel sorry for him? I mean, he left his dead girlfriend laying there when he found out and ran off. Oh yeah, Ashton Kutcher. Ashton Kutcher's a stone cold piece of shit. Pardon me. Pardon my language. I apologize. Ashton Kutcher's a bad man. And if you start looking into that deal he was doing where they were trying to help find children that are being abused, he had this software that was going to look through databases like the Center for Exploited Kids, Missing and Exploited Kids, to look at images of child sexual abuse material, kiddie porn, and try to identify people by facial structure or by backdrops or anything so that they could track these kids down. The truth of the matter is there is no software. He's using software that is readily available to every single person on planet Earth, right? This is not some high-tech software that he developed. He just had the idea to use the software that any one of you can download and start trying to save kids with it. It was a BS sale. I'm sorry, it just was. The whole pitch is BS. But that's who Ashton Kutcher is. If you look at what he's done, he was this wizard as a venture capitalist. And they were talking about all the companies that he invested in that was just doing great. Thorn is a worse name for anti-child abuse situation. Yeah, Thorne's awful. It's a terrible name, but it's also it's almost defunct. Nobody believes in this cat anymore. But all of the crap about him being a great venture capitalist, the truth of the matter is he hit a couple of home runs. But if you invest in a crap load of stuff, you're going to hit a couple of home runs. He also helped some people rip a lot of folks off, and no one believes in him anymore. So basically what you're saying is Danny Masterson never getting out of prison. Well, here's the deal. People are fond of saying, naranja, orange juice. People are fond of saying that he got 30 years. He didn't get 30 years. It's something that people like to say. He got 30 to life. So what that means is at 30, they don't go, hey, head on out the door. It means that at 30, he can go in front of a parole board. But for people that didn't take accountability, you have to show up at a parole hearing and say, I did this. I feel horrible about it. And I spent the last 30 years trying to make amends for it. I don't think Danny Masterson's got that in him. He's still fighting tooth and nail. He's trying to get his appeals are still kind of grinding through the system. His appeal was based on the fact that he said the judge did not allow exculpatory evidence to be admitted into the trial. He's going to hit a brick wall on this crap. I promise he is. And just as importantly, there's a lawsuit coming up against the Church of Scientology et al. And Danny Masterson. It was supposed to take place in September of 2025. Doing research today, I can't find a date on it. It doesn't seem like they've actually set a date. It was supposed to move forward in 2025. This is going to be the case where they say the Church of Scientology knew exactly what was happening to these women. Newsflash, they did, right? When we covered this stuff back in the day, and I haven't talked about Danny in a long time, but when we covered this stuff back in the day, it was the facts came out, and the facts are that they sat down and did some kind of arbitration where the sick bastard said, yeah, I'd be willing to help, but I want to hear exactly what I did. I want to hear how it affected the person. He wanted to sit and have somebody tell him exactly what they did to him because it gave him some kind of a sick thrill. He's a really, really disturbed person. His nickname, for those who may have forgotten, was Donkey Punch. If this is not something you're aware of, then maybe you would like to hit mute while I explain what it is, because it's a disturbing thing. But it is a concept that will make sex better for a guy if you punch a woman in the side, because it's going to cause things to tighten up. This is a sick human being, man. Like, I don't have any problem talking about this dude, right? This, there are times where you talk about people and you start going, I'm just kind of being hateful, or I'm kind of being nasty. You can't be hateful or nasty enough to Danny Masterson. And as I said, the boys are treating him bad in there. Oh no, you know what I mean? I feel absolutely horrible about that, right? Really do feel awful that that's going on. What was Danny's crimes? Says the breaks. There were 3 charges. He was acquitted on 1 and found guilty of the other 2. And these charges were, he was guilty of rape, and he was guilty of using chemicals. Hello, good to see you. Smoke Keith, I'm glad you're here. And using drugs to do it. Now, the thing about Masterson is there were 2 people that came forward. I was at his sentencing, and there are a lot of women that didn't make it into the trial. And this happens a lot. If there's a sicko who has multiple victims, take the Diddy case, right? If everything they're saying about Diddy is true and there's all of these victims out there, they're going to pick the people whose story is going to be compelling and has probably got the smallest threshold of having holes poked in it. But I watched the victim impact statements. I was sitting in the courtroom when that took place. And first of all, it's heart-wrenching, really is. And I've been fortunate enough to meet several of those survivors and heroes. Victims is a shitty word for them. These people are survivors, and they're fighters. They're going to continue to take this fight not only to him but to the institution that allowed this to happen, which is the cult of Scientology. So pretty damn excited about his future, to be honest with you, because it's gray and it's dark. And hey, if he's the real deal, like if this guy is a dyed-in-the-wool Scientologist, why wouldn't you drop your body, right? I mean, you pull the plug, and the next thing you know, you're going to be starting this all over again. And maybe next time you don't be a rich rapist, right? Maybe next time you take a slightly different route in your reincarnation, or you're picking up of the new Thetan hardware, or whatever the hell they call it. They are incredibly brave, and to get up and do that in court, to get up and talk about what had happened, it's a difficult thing, especially when you know that the person you're going to be bringing the accusations against at the time was beloved, right? That 70 show is a really popular show. And, this, until a guy's reputation sort of takes that hit, it's a very difficult thing. And if you look at statistics, about 6 out of 10 women don't come forward, right? It's terrifying how many will just not do it. And it's because we've not been fairly good at treating the people who have endured this kind of stuff well over the years. Years ago, they changed the laws to come up with something called the rape shield statutes. But prior to that, if a woman said, hey, I was victimized, they would say, well, we're going to bring in every dude you ever slept with and put all of them on the stand. And it's sort of an ipso facto. You slept with 19 people. Why would you have told this one no? And it was really sleazy and really awful for a very long time. But we're at least starting to look a little better. You know what? This is the crazy thing, right? Tara is obviously hip to Scientology, because anything that happens to you, you pulled in, right? So it's not too far off to assume that probably was at some level, that was what they were told, right? But Danny was, took the stance of, I would be willing to help out. I would be willing to try to help the children of the people that this happened to. But he wanted to sit in a room and have them recount the experience to him. And the cult of Scientology allowed that to happen, allegedly. But I feel pretty confident that that's how it went down. And I would say that there is it's a really good chance that if this guy decides not to drop the body, that we're going to be seeing him back in court at some point. The cult of Scientology has a stink load of money. When you force people to buy your way level by level through a religion, you can stack up a lot of cash. And they've got a lot of very, very wealthy, rich people who get treated considerably different than the rest of the folks, right? Danny Masterson was a celebrity center Scientologist. This wasn't a normal guy going to orgs, right? And they have a worship of sorts of all people famous. It helps drive the narrative, the Tom Cruises of the world, and all of these people that are willing to put. Yeah, you know what? Being in a secret society, here's the thing, and I understand what you're saying, Bugs Bunny. Being in a secret society might open you to some of these things, but do you know how often the people we're talking about end up being second generations, or even now we're into third generations and sometimes fourth? If you're born into Scientology, there really isn't a decision to be a part of a secret society, right? You were born into this, and you, in many cases, have no idea that the world outside there is anything other than terrifying, because that's the pitch from the cult, right? I won't use the word that they use to describe us because it is a slur of another kind, but there's a word that they use to describe us: meat sacks, us, the people that have just recently crawled out of the swamp, so to speak. They believe that they are they're immortal beings that have been around forever, and we're too stupid to realize that. And that's kind of how they treat the outside world. So the people who are born into this are terrified to meet the non-Scientologists, because they're told basically that we have blood dripping off our teeth. Mom, good to see you, man. So it's just kind of a different situation. I've always felt this way. There are, people that join cults. I understand how it happens, but I kind of feel the way you do. Sometimes you just have to start saying, well, it's just different. Pat Allen. What a kind thing to say. What a very kind thing to say. Appreciate you. I'm glad you're here. This is a pretty sick organization, and I've been privy, right, to and have the ability to talk to a lot of people that were born into this cult, and it's the story's never told well enough, because it is so just disgusting and dangerous. You understand the concept of things like bull baiting, where you sit down and you sit across from, and if it were me, you'd go, God, you got a big nose. You're a convict. You're a piece of shit, right? And they berate you. And when I was a public speaker, I used to watch the people from Est do the same thing. They would be on the tour about the same time we were. And you'd see adults sitting across from one another, and they're yelling to the point where spittle is flying. And the idea is you're supposed to be able to take this, and it proves that you have control over your human emotions. And that's all fine and dandy if that's how you want to get down. But if you're doing it to a 4 or 5-year-old, trying to take a 4 or 5-year-old boy or girl and teach them that human emotion should not ever be allowed out of your body, is satanic. I don't care what else you want to call it, but it is a textbook of how to destroy a soul. It's a textbook on how to make somebody very, very damaged. It's one of the most scary concepts in the world to me. By the way, been doing a lot of research on a subject matter that we've talked about on here a couple of times before. There's been rumors throughout the years of whether or not Charles Manson achieved clear through Scientology. And I started doing actual research because a lot of people talk, Arabian Bard, good to see you. And here's the deal on that. It's a fact that when he was in prison, he listed his religion as Scientology. That I can find that document. So that is absolutely a fact. I found the name of the guy that used to be his auditor. Apparently, he did about 160 hours that they can document of auditing. And when he got out of prison, he went to both the LA and the San Francisco Church of Scientology orgs and said, "Hey, I'm clear. What's next?" That stuff can all kind of be backed up. That's I can get, and I'm going to be doing a show on it on the other channel, the channel at the moment called Cults and Crims. Not sure exactly what that channel will be called, but and we're going live there tonight. By the way, it's one of the reasons I went early. In about 50 minutes, 45 minutes, something like that. At the bottom of the next hour, I will be live over on Cults and Crims. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on Danny Masterson. To be really honest with you, I find it parasitic in a way. Hold on. Yeah, it does make sense. Here's the crazy thing. When you listen to Manson in his interviews, so most of us have watched Charlie Manson talk about things. There's a clip when he's doing his interview with Charles Manson, and he's describing engrams. He's describing the concept of what Scientologists believes. And one of the examples he gives, and Charlie's a bit out there, was a bit out there, but he talked about, you got your baby there, and he's sitting there and doing the goo goo gaga stuff, and you're playing "Come On Baby, Light My Fire," and that leaves an imprint. And he grows up and starts burning houses down. You got to sort of read between the lines with Charlie because he was really, really out there. His brain was cooked. I think that we did a lot of that, we being the United States government. There's the book Chaos makes a really excellent case for what we did with Charles Manson. We kept him out of prison. When he got out, he got caught with a gun. He got caught with drugs. Those are probation violations that instantly put you back in prison. Instead, it put him into a clinic on Haight-Ashbury that was absolutely run by the Central Intelligence Agency. It's a difficult thing to debate. It absolutely was there. It was CIA. They know the name of the people that were in there doing it. And it was an extension of the MK Ultra program. When you realize that this guy went to a clinic to be worked on for MK Ultra, it shouldn't be a shocker that they turned him into a killer. Charlie, throughout his entire criminal history, was just a petty thief. He was a guy that would get caught stealing a car. He's a guy that would get caught stealing a bicycle, or he would go into some place and steal food. He was not a guy that was doing big crimes. He wasn't robbing banks. He wasn't dealing massive amounts of drugs. He wasn't doing any of those things. He was a petty criminal from about the age of 9 when he first hit going into a home for wayward boys. By all accounts, he got raped there. It's not a shocker. We sort of failed Charlie. Do we care for pedos? Look, man, I don't know if you caught the beginning of this, but I don't care if Danny Masterson gets his face stomped out tomorrow. It won't bum me out in the slightest. If he ends up dead by the end of the week, I promise you, all you'll get from me is oh no. I take serious joy in the fact that this dude is living the way he's living. I take joy in the fact that he's afraid to go out of his cell because he thinks people are going to get him. He certainly did that to other people, right? So this is paying the fiddler, and he's got a nice long sentence. I have absolutely no problem whatsoever with what they've done to him. Manson was man's son. He was a product of our justice system, of CIA in that system. I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. We failed Charles Manson in a big way. However, it's terrifying that we had programs out there where, like MK Ultra, and every time I talk about MK Ultra, someone will send me an email and go, "That's a conspiracy theory." It sure as shit isn't, right? There are 142 absolutely verifiable victims. We don't know how many there are, but there's 142 that have been verified. In Canada, in the United States, we were doing this, and we were not telling the people we were doing it. They were not in an experiment. They just went to the hospital for the wrong reasons, and then we doped them up on LSD and started messing with them to see if we could turn them into a robot killer. That's real. We did that. How jacked up is that? Charlie was, he definitely, if you research what was going on out at Spawn Ranch, Charlie definitely had sex with a lot of underage girls. And by a lot of accounts, he also had sex with some underage boys. That's right. Karma's a bitch. Yeah, even the CIA admitted it finally. I did a FOIA on that. And if you get all of the stuff on it, it's confusing as hell. They've redacted so much of it. And the go-to in our government is, well, we redact this stuff to protect the victims. But when you get a FOIA form, it's literally just blacked out, right? And how the hell do you know? It's this much blacked out. You can tell me that's somebody's name and address? They got rid of a lot of stuff. We have absolutely played with people's lives in ways that are really, really awful. And then we literally go to court and fight giving them money. We did settle with a lot of people for a lot of money, but their lives were destroyed. People committed suicide. We did this in Canada to a woman that was pregnant, right? Gave LSD, and I'm not talking about micrograms. Like you normally do acid, you're going to do between like 75 and 125 micrograms. They were giving people half-gram and gram shots, terrifying amounts of LSD. And her child was born challenged because of it. And when he went to court, they said, no, this is only for victims. We could pay your mother, but we can't pay you. That's a really rugged thought, in my opinion. The movie Manchurian Candidate. Yeah, that's what the CIA was doing. That is, the Manchurian Candidate is kind of the template, right? It's literally what was going on. And by all accounts, some of this stuff we did get from the war in Korea. Allegedly, they were doing this to some of our soldiers. And instead of going, oh, God, how awful is that? We went, hey, that's a hell of an idea. Let's see if we can use acid to make it easier, right? Let's try this lysergic stuff that they're giving to everybody. And on top of this, there was also a Operation Chaos that was going on. Operation Chaos is also a program that was run by the Central Intelligence Agency. And all they wanted to do was, hey, Kathy, they wanted to destroy the reputations and the movement of hippies. Right? They thought that the free love, Woodstock, peace, love, and all of that stuff was a direct threat to the United States of America. So for that reason, they came out with Operation Chaos, and they were going to infiltrate these groups of people with folks that worked for the Central Intelligence Agency and try to do things to discredit that free, happy, free love hippie movement. Now, maybe it's a coincidence. But the Tate LaBianca murders and what happened to Leno and Rosemary and all of the people that got killed out there, it killed, right? The Summer of Love and all of that stuff was over after the Manson murders. People no longer looked at hippies as people that were, free love kind of stuff. Then you looked at a hippie and you thought, they're probably going to write something satanic on my wall after they murder me and try to remove the baby from my wife's tummy. Because that's the kind of crap that they were able to sell through the whole trial of Charles Manson. I did a show on this a while back, but the Vincent Bugliosi narrative that, they listened to the White Album and the Beatles told Charles Manson who to kill. It's just absolute horse feces. Even if you talk to the people that worked the investigations, they all said, this is ridiculous. But while Vincent Bugliosi was trying that case, in the front row was his co-author, sitting there soaking it all in. That what happened to Manson is absolutely ridiculous. He's a bad man, but he didn't get a trial. He really didn't. It was an abortion of justice. It really was. And I'm not saying that he shouldn't have gone to prison, because I think he should. If it wasn't for Bill Cooper, I don't think we would have known about MK Ultra. 1972 or something like that. Helms, I think, is the guy. We found out the leak came out, and they started to want to ask questions about MK Ultra. And the director at the time of the Central Intelligence Agency destroyed all of the files, or at least he thought he destroyed all of the files. It's very likely the advent of the talented and gifted programs back in the 80s was to create research for recruits. There's a lot of people who believe you in that. Whine a little bit more. Good to see you. There's a lot of people that believe that the gifted and talented programs were a way to try to find kids who had specific gifts, hyperthemsia being one of them, people who had the ability to memorize ungodly amounts of information. Also, people that were super intelligent but not doing well in other ways, right? Usually people that were gifted but also had some issues. Do you think Mark David Chapman was part of these experiments because they wanted to get rid of John Lennon? I don't know that I believe that. However, I understand why people do. I completely understand why people do. A lot of people talk about the song Revolution, right? He was changing, and some of the stuff that he was writing, if you go carrying pictures of Chairman Mao, he was sort of shifting back and forth, and he was a voice that a lot of people listened to. The Beatles were absolutely huge. There's an odd thing about some of the people who made assassinations attempts, who happened to be reading Catcher in the Rye or had a copy of it with them when they did the shooting. If you go the normal research route, they'll say to you, well, there were 16 million of those in print. And in a country that has 300 million people in it, this was a book that most disaffected youth, right, male youth in particular, will really kind of feel some kind of a kinship to the protagonist, Holden Caulfield, who's kind of a screw up, and he's just trying to sort of get and work his way through. Well, Mark David Chapman had it. The guy that shot Reagan had it. A guy that shot a Playboy bunny out in California had it. And they'll talk about copycats or whatever. But if you actually do the critical thinking part of it, they talk about 16 million books in print. These shootings happened in the early 80s. If you go back and look at how many of those books were sold after the early 80s, it's odd. It's very, very odd that so many people who end up trying to assassinate people seem to be very enthralled with J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye. By the way, none of you are in danger of me shooting anybody, but one of my favorite books of all time. Catcher in the Rye is just an amazing, amazing book. It was on the easy reading list when I was in high school. You know what? It's a very thin book. I'll tell you the other thing that kind of freaks me out about it is I've never seen it printed in any other way. Like, I collect Alice in Wonderland books. I have hundreds and hundreds of them. And there's a million different people that print it. And they have different covers on it. They have different, so the book never looks the same. Have you ever seen a copy of Catcher in the Rye that wasn't red, that didn't have a red jacket? It's always a soft cover. At least that's been my experience. But there's a lot of weirdness to Catcher in the Rye. There is, but it's a heavy story. It really is. It's a very, very heavy story, and the symbolism in it, right? He's always wearing the hat backwards like a catcher, and he doesn't want kids to run off the cliff into adulthood. He wants to be the catcher in the rye to stop these kids from coming. And the relationship with his baby sister Phoebe. It's a book that you could spend a lot of time thinking about. Back in the day, I mean, when you read it as a 17-year-old boy, you laugh at all the cursing, right? He curses throughout the entire thing, and he says, "I'm the biggest liar you ever met," and it's funny. You read it at 25 when you're in college, and it's not nearly as funny as it was the first time you read it. And when you read it at 50, it's one of the most heart-wrenching books. But I try to read it every couple of years just because. I've known that quite a few guys that have hidden or Holden or Caulfield as a name. You know what? When I worked as a public speaker, you don't want your name in the hotel registry because you're speaking in that hotel. And if somebody has questions, they'll just call the front desk and go, "Hey, can you put me through to Scoville's room? I have some questions for him." So usually when you check in and you say, "I'm a speaker here," they'll say, "Is there a name you'd like to use other than your own?" They do this for rock stars. They do it for anybody that's putting on any kind of show. The rock band, the Ramones, were named after the fact that Paul McCartney used to use the last name Ramone whenever he checked into a hotel because he didn't want people knowing he was there. Beatlemania was kind of a big deal. That's who the Ramones named themselves after, right? But I used to use Holden Caulfield. At any hotel I checked into, if I didn't want people knowing, I would say Holden Caulfield. Mark David Chapman doesn't remember doing it, and neither does Sirhan remember the shooting. Yeah, the Sirhan thing. I did a show on this recently. If you go back and look at the show I did on the RFK assassination, that's the #1 easiest provable conspiracy in history. For real. There's an audio recording of 13 shots that came off of an 8-shot revolver. Right? Every witness, 77 witnesses said that in front of Kennedy, Sirhan had a gun, was firing, and he was standing somewhere between 3 to 5 feet in front of Kennedy. All of the bullets that killed Kennedy were shot in the back. That's one of the worst, just sloppy conspiracies. They destroyed all of the evidence. There were door jams and there were crown molding and things that had other bullets in it. The FBI destroyed all of them. It's one of the most disgusting cover-ups in history, and I feel bad for Sirhan. by all accounts, everyone that knew him said he disappeared for 90 days. Disappeared. Like he wasn't around anywhere. Family couldn't find him. No one could find him. Then he pops back up, gets a job working at the hotel, and all of it stinks. There were a crap load of extra bullets. There were a crap load of extra bullets found there. And it's the guy that killed him, by all accounts, was a security guard that also worked at Lockheed Martin, people that brought you skunk works, right? He worked at Lockheed Martin, but just took a job as a security guard for one night. It doesn't make any sense at all. It really doesn't. All of it's just nasty. It is fascinating, isn't it, Jane? That is a conspiracy worth digging into. It's layer upon layer upon layer, and if you keep digging, you're going to come across a conversation that multiple people heard between Richard Nixon's kid, Don Nixon, and one of the people that allegedly set up the entire shooting. And in that particular meeting, the guy said, I was there in Dallas when we took out, what's his name? And I was in LA when we killed his piece of shit brother, or something along those lines. I think this is probably a pretty good point. Susie Q says, government will do anything to weaken the strongest and destroy harmony within family units, as well as society, by separating us by religion, race, sexual orientation, or anything else, right? Anything they can do to get us into two groups, because scientifically speaking, if you can get an us versus them, those are the easiest people on earth to manipulate. If you believe that those people hate you and those people believe that you hate them, the government will come in and they'll come up with a solution that's just going to make it better for everybody. And it's BS. Funny things are happening, folks. Funny things are happening, right? Bill Gates no longer believes that climate change is a threat to the world. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? I did some research on this. If I asked you what percentage of Republicans and Democrats believe that one of the biggest issues facing our planet is global warming, would you be shocked if I told you that it's the same number for the Republicans and the Democrats, and that it's less than 3%? 2%. But if you watch when elections are going on, they'll tell you it is the biggest issue in your mind, in your soul, in your heart, because we need the Greta Thunbergs of the world. I better get off here before I start offending people. I got priors, you know. Got priors for offending people. I will be on in about 20 minutes with my partner, Reese, on, well, you can hit it up, Cults and Crims. It won't be called that much longer, but it is called Cults and Crims right now. You may want to head over there. Biggest scam in history. If it's not, it's certainly in the running, Brock Bandy. If it is not, it is in the running. Did you say Nixon had a son, or did my brain just make that up? I thought Nixon only had, oh, I'm sorry. Nixon's brother, I believe, was Don Nixon. Did I say son? You see what happens, folks. They don't call it dope for nothing. Spent a lot of time doing that stuff. Can't wait to find the new name. We may talk about that this evening. So if you haven't gone over and watched Cults and Crims in a long time, because we weren't there for a long time, you should stop by. It's a fun show. I will be there in about 20 minutes. Between now and then, get over there. Check it out. I hope to see all of you there. I really do. Yeah, you know, it's, yeah, it may have been, I think it's his brother. Did I say son? Are you sure I said son? Well, it shouldn't surprise you. I also said Jean-Luc Picard when talking about Jean-Luc Brunel. If it wasn't for Tommy B, was it? Who busted me on that? See you there, says Just Joan. All right, look at all these see you there's. I hope to see you guys over there. I am Tommy. I will see you on the next one. Between now and then, put a little love in your heart, right? And you know something? Don't shed a tear for Danny Masterson. He buttered his bread. Now he can lay in it, right? All right, everybody. We'll see you on the next one, and we'll see you tonight on Cults and Crims. Thank you.